What would you do if your coworker was stealing your ideas and your snacks? Sarah Wheeler, a 35-year-old marketing executive, thought she had everything under control until she realized someone in her office had been stealing her snacks. But that wasn't the only problem. Her arrogant coworker, Chad, had been taking credit for her hard work. This time, she wasn't going to just let it slide. Stay tuned to see how Sarah handles the office drama, and don't forget to subscribe for more workplace tales. Now, let me set the scene for you. I'm 35 years old, living what I thought would be my best life, or maybe my busiest as a marketing executive in the heart of Norfolk. My days are a whirlwind of pitch meetings, late nights at the office, and way too much coffee. Sarah, you're going to burn out if you keep this up, my coworker Ashley says, glancing at the clock as she watches me finish yet another presentation for a big client. I shrug, not taking my eyes off the screen. I can't help it. The Hendrick account is driving me crazy. Ashley smirks. Speaking of crazy, where's that trail mix you always keep in your drawer? I pause, my eyes scanning my desk and then the empty drawer, and a sudden realization hits. Gone? I frown, muttering to myself. I swear, Ashley, I'm not losing my mind. Someone's been stealing my snacks. Ashley laughs. I'd bet you $5 it's Chad, she whispers, nodding toward the cubicle next to mine. Ah, Chad Swift, the office charmer. He's got a smile so smooth he could probably sell ice to an Eskimo. Too bad that smile hides who he really is. Did you actually see him near my desk? I narrow my eyes, already suspecting the worst. Not exactly, but come on, he's always mooching off people, whether it's their ideas, their work, or apparently their food. Why not your snacks too? Ashley leans back, clearly entertained by the thought. I sigh, rubbing my temples. I can't just accuse him without proof. HR would have a field day. Then get proof, Ashley suggests, her eyes lighting up with mischief. Before I can respond, my phone buzzes, cutting the tension. It's my sister Megan. Sarah, emergency! The florist just canceled! Her panicked voice echoes through the phone. Wedding drama, just what I needed on top of everything else. I groan, feeling the weight of the day settling in. Take a deep breath, Megan. We'll figure it out, I say, trying to calm her down, but I can already feel the stress mounting. After hanging up, I slump back in my chair. My to-do list just grew by a mile. Suddenly, Chad strolls over with that cocky grin of his. Ladies, working hard or hardly working? He jokes, completely unfazed by the tension in the air. I resist the urge to roll my eyes. What do you need, Chad? Just wondering if you have those projections for the Morton account. Team meetings in 10 minutes. My blood boils. Those were my projections, and he clearly procrastinated on his part of the work. But I keep my cool. Sure, Chad, I'll email them over, I say, teeth clenched. As he walks away, Ashley leans in, whispering, See? Total freeloader. I sigh, massaging my temples. Office life. It's always something, isn't it? Whether it's wedding chaos, snack thieves, or coworkers like Chad, there's never a dull moment. An idea starts to form in my head. Maybe it's time to take matters into my own hands. The rest of the day passes in a blur, filled with meetings, last-minute tasks, and putting out fires. By the time I'm packing up to leave, I catch Chad hovering near my desk, his eyes darting toward my drawer. Night, Sarah. Don't work too hard, he says, all innocence, flashing me his signature grin. I force a polite smile. Night, Chad. As soon as he's gone, I turn to Ashley. Okay, Operation Snack Thief is officially on. Ashley's face lights up. Finally, let's do this. We start setting up the trap. I feel a mix of excitement and nervousness as we work. This was more than just catching a snack thief. It was about principle. Build? I know this was the start of a workplace showdown that would change everything. The next morning, I walk into the office with a plan ready to go. My secret weapon, a fake lottery ticket tucked inside my lunch bag. If Chad really was the snack thief, this would lure him in. Morning, Sarah. You're looking awfully cheerful today, Ashley says as I pass her desk, raising an eyebrow. Oh, just feeling lucky, I reply with a wink, patting my bag. I settle into my desk, double-checking that my hidden camera pin is perfectly positioned. The stage was set. It doesn't take long for Chad to make his move. He strolls over, coffee in hand, his usual confident grin plastered across his face. "Hey, Sarah, got any of those amazing homemade cookies today?" I smile, playing along. "Sorry, Chad, not today, but I do have a pretty awesome lunch planned." He looks a little disappointed, but I see a spark in his eye. Hook, line, and sinker. As the morning drags on, I keep one eye on my bag and the other on my work. Any moment now. Suddenly, my phone buzzes. It's Amber, my boss. "Sarah, can you come to my office now?" My heart skips a beat. What could this be about? I take a deep breath and head over. Amber sits behind her desk, her usual stern expression in place. This was serious. "Close the door, Sarah," she says. I sit down, palms sweating. "What's going on, Amber?" "We're looking at promoting someone to lead the new digital marketing division," she begins. "Your name is on the list." I almost choke. "Seriously? Wow." Amber holds up a hand. "Don't celebrate just yet. Chad is also being considered, of course." Of course he is. I bite my tongue to stop a groan from escaping. "The decision will be based on your performance over the next few weeks. Keep this between us," Amber says firmly. I nod, my mind racing. Great, now I've got to catch a snack thief and outshine Chad for a promotion. "Got it," I reply, determination flooding my veins. This was no longer just about catching a petty thief. It was a challenge, one that would push me to prove my worth. The game was on. As I walk away from Amber's office, my thoughts are already locked onto the next step. This promotion had just become even more crucial. Walking back to my desk, I spot Chad loitering nearby, pretending to be busy. Time to put my plan into action. I grab my phone and pull off my best urgent call routine. "Hello? Yes, this is Sarah Wheeler." "Oh no, really? Okay, I'll be right there." I rush out of the office, leaving my lunch bag in plain sight. From the corner of the hallway, I watch Chad's every move. He glances around, his eyes darting nervously. Then, like he's just walking by, he casually approaches my desk. And just as I'd hoped, he starts rummaging through my bag. My heart pounds in my chest, but I stay perfectly still, holding my breath. Then, I see it. His eyes widen. Bingo! He's found the fake lottery ticket. In a swift motion, he pockets it, glancing around to make sure no one's watching before walking away. I let out a silent breath. Perfect. The bait worked. I return to my desk, acting like nothing happened. Ashley catches my eye, leaning in. "Did it work?" she whispers. I nod, my grin wide. The plan was unfolding exactly how I wanted. The rest of the day, I keep a close eye on Chad. He's acting jittery, checking his phone every few minutes like he's waiting for something. During the afternoon meeting, his distracted behavior is impossible to ignore. "Earth to Chad," Kevin jokes from across the table. "What's up? You in the lottery or something?" Chad laughs, but it's forced, his face turning an awkward shade of red. "What? No, just, thinking about a big account." "Yeah, right," I think, hiding a smirk behind my notebook. He's not fooling anyone, at least not me. As the day drags on, the office gossip starts to spiral. Marilyn from accounting rushes over, her face tight with worry. "Did you hear?" she whispers, eyes darting around. "They're saying Wheeler's account is pulling out. There might be layoffs." My stomach drops. Wheeler's account is one of our largest clients. If the rumors are true, the stakes for this promotion just shot through the roof. I force my voice to stay steady. "Are you sure? That's a massive account." Marilyn nods grimly. "Straight from finance. Things are about to get messy." As I finish up my work, packing my things, Chad approaches. He's practically bouncing with excitement, trying to act casual but failing miserably. "Hey, Sarah," he says with a grin. "Crazy day, huh? Listen, I was thinking maybe we could grab a drink sometime, talk about the future, big plans and all." I resist the urge to roll my eyes. "Thanks, Chad, but I'm swamped with this new project. Maybe another time." He nods eagerly, the grin still plastered on his face. Sure, no rush. We've got all the time in the world, right?" I smile politely, but my thoughts are elsewhere. If only you knew, Chad. Things are about to get very interesting. I felt a mix of satisfaction and nervousness. The trap was set, but now the stakes were much higher. Between the promotion and the rumors about layoffs, everything felt like it was hanging by a thread. Over the next few days, Chad started acting like he had already hit the jackpot. Well, in his mind, he had. He strutted around the office with a new kind of confidence, whispering to anyone who would listen. "Sarah," Ashley hissed from her desk one afternoon, "what's Chad telling Kevin over there?" I leaned in, trying to catch what he was saying. His voice carried just enough for me to hear him say, "Just waiting for the funds to clear, then I'm out of here. Thinking maybe I could." I couldn't believe my ears. "Unbelievable," I muttered to Ashley. "He's planning vacations while the rest of us are worrying about losing our jobs." "Speaking of which," Ashley added, "have you noticed how empty his desk has been? He hasn't barely been around." That gave me an idea. I quickly typed up an anonymous email to HR detailing Chad's frequent absences. I didn't want to come off as vindictive. It was just time for someone to take notice of his behavior. Later that day, we all gathered for an important presentation to save the Wheeler account, one of our biggest clients. The tension in the room was thick. Chad swaggered in late, looking disheveled and completely unprepared. "All right, Chad, show us what you've got," Amber said, raising an eyebrow. Chad shuffled his notes and started fumbling through his words. Yes, the Wheeler account. So, we're going to increase engagement by..." His voice trailed off as he stared blankly at his papers. The clients exchanged worried glances. I knew I had to step in. "Perhaps we should take a short break," I said smoothly. "I have some additional materials that might interest everyone." As the group left the room, I grabbed Chad's arm. "What the hell, Chad? This is our biggest account. Are you even trying?" He shrugged me off, smirking. "Relax, Sarah. None of this matters anymore. I've got bigger fish to fry." I was fuming, but there was no time to argue. When we reconvened, I took charge of the presentation. I gave it everything I had: clear slides, strong data, and a compelling vision for the account's future. By the end, the clients were nodding enthusiastically, and Amber's expression softened into approval. "Excellent work, Sarah," she said. Then she turned to Chad. "Chad, a word in my office, please." As they left, Kevin approached me looking embarrassed. "Hey, Sarah, this is kind of awkward, but could I borrow $1,800? Chad promised to pay me back double once his big windfall comes through." I stared at him speechless for a moment. Chad's lies were spreading fast, but now the truth was unraveling even faster. This was far from over. I stare at Kevin completely stunned. "Wait, how much did you give him?" He shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "About $2,000, he mutters. "But it's fine. He showed me the ticket and everything." My heart sinks. This has gone way too far. I try to stay calm, but inside I'm boiling. Chad's lies are dragging everyone down with him. Later, as I'm organizing files for the Wheeler account, I notice something strange. The strategies and ideas in the files. They're mine. Every single one of them, but they've all been signed off by Chad. "What a sneaky little thief," I mutter under my breath. I dig deeper, finding email after email where he's taken credit for my work. This wasn't just about snacks or a fake lottery ticket anymore. Chad had been stealing my ideas all along. Furious, I begin copying everything into a separate folder, my hands moving quickly but deliberately. As I finish, the door bursts open and Chad storms in, panic written all over his face. "Sarah, I need to borrow some cash. It's an emergency." I cross my arms and give him a hard look, not budging an inch. "What kind of emergency, Chad?" He glances around the room, lowers his voice, and leans in close like he's about to reveal some grand secret. "Look, I can't say too much, but let's just say I'm about to come into a lot of money. I just need a little to tide me over. I'll pay you back triple, I swear." I shake my head, disgust flooding my chest. "Sorry, Chad, I'm not a bank, and I don't hand out loans." His face twists, frustration flashing across his features as he storms out, muttering under his breath. I turn back to my computer, my resolve hardening. Enough is enough. Chad's lies, his theft, his freeloading, it all ends here. I start gathering everything: the emails where he stole my ideas, the records of his absences, testimonies from coworkers who had lent him money. Piece by piece, I build a solid case. Chad's house of cards is about to collapse, and I'm going to be the one to push it over. The next day, the office buzzes with chatter as Chad walks in like he owns the place. He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than my rent. He claps his hands together, his smirk stretching wide. "Gather round, peasants," he announces loudly. "Your golden boy is moving on to greener pastures." I exchange a baffled look with Ashley, who mouths, "What the hell?" Chad grins like a Cheshire cat, relishing the attention. "That's right, folks. I've hit the jackpot. No more late nights, no more deadlines, no more Amber breathing down my neck. I'm leaving this dump behind." Amber emerges from her office, her face a storm cloud. "Chad, what's the meaning of this?" He laughs obnoxiously, spreading his arms wide. "Oh, Amber, sweet, simple Amber. I don't have to explain myself to you anymore. I'm rich, baby." I bite my lip to hide my smirk. Little does Chad know, his so-called success is about to come crashing down, and he's standing right on the edge of the cliff. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Chad's arrogance has reached new heights. It's time to put an end to this, once and for all. "Actually, Chad," I say, stepping forward, my voice steady but firm, "I think you do need to explain yourself." The room falls into a heavy silence as I pull out a folder and hand it to Amber. "This contains evidence of Chad's theft of intellectual property, fraudulent reports, and misappropriation of company resources," I say clearly, my eyes locked on Chad's now panicked face. His smug grin disappears, replaced by a flicker of panic. "What? That's ridiculous!" "You're just jealous of my success." "Success?" I scoff, holding up a printout of the fake lottery ticket he'd shown around. "You mean this? Hate to break it to you, Chad, but your so-called jackpot is as fake as your work ethic." The office erupts into chaos. Kevin, red-faced with fury, lunges at Chad, shouting about the money he's owed. Others join in, their voices rising with accusations, each one demanding answers. It's a storm of frustration, all directed at him. "Security!" Amber yells, her voice slicing through the noise. "Escort Mr. Swift out of the building." Chad struggles, protesting his innocence, but the security guards are unyielding as they appear, dragging him out while he shouts, "This is a setup! You'll regret this!" His words fall on deaf ears. Amber turns to me with a look of quiet authority. "Sarah, my office, now!" My heart races, the uncertainty of what comes next settling over me as I follow her into her office. She sits behind her desk, her expression unreadable, and gestures to the chair opposite her. "Sit," she says, her voice calm. "Explain everything." I take a deep breath and recount the entire story, from the stolen snacks to the fake lottery ticket and Chad's escalating behavior. As I speak, Amber listens intently, her face shifting from disbelief to anger, and then to something I can only describe as respect. "Well, Sarah," she says finally, her voice measured, "I must say I'm impressed not with your methods, mind you, but with your initiative and dedication to this company." I brace myself, expecting a reprimand, but Amber continues, a slight smile playing on her lips. "It's exactly why I'm offering you Chad's position, effective immediately." I stare at her, stunned. "Really? I mean, thank you, Amber. I won't let you down." Over the next few weeks, the office undergoes a transformation. I implement new policies focused on transparency, teamwork, and accountability. Slowly but surely, morale improves, and the team begins to thrive. We land 3 major new accounts, and the energy in the office is the best it's been in years. As for Chad, his downfall is nothing short of spectacular. News trickles in that he tried to claim his lottery winnings, only to be laughed out of the lottery office when they revealed his ticket was fake. He vanished soon after, leaving behind a legacy of embarrassment. Life in the office isn't perfect, but it's better than it's ever been. As I settle into my new role, I can't help but feel a sense of pride. Justice was served, and the future looks brighter than ever. 2 months later, I found myself at my sister's wedding, standing at the center of the room, glass in hand, ready to give my maid of honor speech. The air buzzed with joy and excitement as everyone settled in to listen. I took a deep breath and began. "Life's funny," I said with a smile. "Sometimes the path to success isn't straight. It's full of twists, turns, and even a few people who try to take advantage of you." The crowd chuckled, and I glanced at Ashley, sitting near the back. She gave me an enthusiastic thumbs up, and I couldn't help but grin. "But if there's one thing I've learned," I continued, "it's this. Integrity and perseverance always win in the end. So, here's to the bride and groom, and to facing life's challenges head on." Applause erupted as I raised my glass, and the bride and groom beamed with happiness. The moment was perfect, filled with love, laughter, and new beginnings. But just as I sat down, my phone buzzed. Curious, I glanced at the screen. It was a news alert. "Former marketing executive arrested for fraud," the headline read. A small smile crept across my face. Karma, I thought. Chad had finally gotten what was coming to him. Apparently, after his dramatic exit from the office, Chad had burned bridges everywhere. He'd scammed so many people that his lies finally caught up to him. Angry creditors, duped coworkers, and false promises had piled up, and now the law had taken notice. Chad wasn't just a disgraced former coworker anymore. He was facing serious consequences. It felt like the final chapter of a wild story. Justice had been served, and in Chad's case, it wasn't just a dish best served cold, it was a full-course meal. The thought of him trying to explain himself in court almost made me laugh out loud, but as I sat there, a question popped into my head. If I were to go back and relive those moments, would I have done anything differently? Would I have exposed Chad's fraud immediately, or let him dig his own grave like I did? Was my approach justified, or did I cross an ethical line somewhere along the way? I decided to throw the question to my audience. "What would you have done in my shoes?" I asked. Would you have confronted Chad right away, or let him unravel his own lies like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on this office showdown. Before I left, I added one last note. And if you enjoyed this wild tale of workplace drama and justice, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more juicy stories. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. As I looked around the room, surrounded by my family, friends, and newfound clarity, I realized one thing. Life has a way of rewarding patience and integrity. And for people like Chad, well, karma takes care of the rest. What do you do when the person who's been taking advantage of you finally gets what's coming to them? When you've worked hard, dealt with manipulation, and seen the lies unravel before your eyes, do you stand up and fight, or let karma take its course? Sarah's journey was never about a snack thief. It was about recognizing the patterns, the lies, and the people who tried to pull her down. Chad thought he could get away with it stealing snacks, stealing ideas, even stealing credit for others' hard work. But Sarah wasn't going to let him get away with it. She took matters into her own hands, proving that integrity and perseverance always win in the end. When she exposed Chad's deceit, it wasn't just about a job promotion or petty office drama. It was about making sure that hard work and honesty were recognized, even if it meant bringing down someone who'd been riding on others' coattails. Chad's downfall wasn't just professional, it was personal, and karma made sure he paid the price for his actions. But here's the big question. If you were in Sarah's shoes, would you have acted sooner? Would you have confronted Chad head-on or let him hang himself with his own lies? What would you have done? Let's discuss it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this intense workplace drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories.
Worthless, Aunt Clara muttered under her breath as she strode past me, not even attempting to lower her voice. I glanced up from my sketchbook just in time to see the disdain written across her face before she turned away. I looked down again quickly, gripping my pencil tighter while trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. I sat tucked away in the back corner of my aunt and uncle's overcrowded living room, sketching quietly during our family's monthly gathering. All around me, chatter and laughter echoed off the walls as my relatives socialized, doused in a healthy glow of wine. I did my best to make myself small and unnoticed. It wasn't difficult. I'd had 15 years of practice. Did you see Theo's last game, though? My mom's voice rang out loudly from the kitchen. 2 touchdowns. They won by a landslide. A chorus of cheers and congratulations erupted in response. I snuck a glance across the room at my cousin holding court over a captive audience, grinning from ear to ear. His Letterman jacket hung proudly over the back of his chair, trophy glinting under the lights. I looked back at my sketchbook just as Aunt Clara walked by again. She stopped short this time, narrowing her eyes as she spotted my work. Still scribbling away as usual, I see, she noted in a tone that landed somewhere between curiosity and disgust. Don't you have homework to be doing or something? I pressed my lips together, staring intently at my paper. I finished it already. Well, I suppose it's harmless enough, she dismissed with a wave of her ring-laden hand before walking away. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. Her words echoed in my ears. Worthless, harmless. I knew she thought both about me and my art. Somewhere deep down, I feared the worst part was she could be right. I jumped as a gentle hand grasped my shoulder. I looked up to see Uncle Max's kind eyes peering down at me through his thick glasses. Don't listen to her, Lila, he said softly. I think what you create is lovely. I managed a small smile in return, comforted more by the solidarity of his gaze than the compliment itself. Uncle Max was the only one who ever bothered to look closely at my drawings. He seemed to understand the pangs of being overlooked amid the symphony of other people's noise. As he gave my shoulder a supportive squeeze before walking away, I realized this monthly gathering marked the 3rd in a row he had offered me those same gentle words. Don't listen to her. His reassuring gestures were becoming something of a ritual, I mused. One I appreciated more deeply each time. The lively hum of the party clambered on around me, but I felt cocooned by Uncle Max's kindness. I allowed myself to become reabsorbed by the strokes of my pencil, applying darker depth and definition to the portrait emerging on my page. I didn't hear Aunt Claire approach until her shadow was upon me. I swear, Lila, it's like you live in your own little world sometimes, she scoffed, craning her neck to catch a glimpse of my work. What are you making that's got you so tuned out anyway? Before I could respond, she snatched the sketchbook from my lap, already laughing. Oh, honey, when are you going to grow up? She cried loudly, her shrill voice cutting through the din. You can't pay the bills with silly little doodles like this. Faces turned in our direction as heat flooded my cheeks. I stared hard at the floor, willing myself not to cry as a few stray snickers arose. Aunt Clara carelessly dropped my sketchbook back in my lap and strode away, gravelly laugh still spilling from her lips. Why put in so much effort for something so worthless? She called over her shoulder. The words pierced my fragile pride, every letter another knife twist to my heart. I hugged my sketchbook tightly to my chest, barely holding back tears. Maybe she was right after all. Pass the potatoes, please, Aunt Clara demanded, her shrill voice cutting through the chatter around the dinner table as she leaned back in her seat. I quietly handed her the platter, avoiding eye contact and hoping to avoid provoking another of her cutting remarks. It was Thanksgiving, after all. The one day of the year our family insisted on coming together despite the simmering tensions. My hope of getting through dinner unscathed was short-lived. As usual, the conversation quickly turned to comparing my lackluster achievements to Theo's latest accolades. Theo made varsity quarterback as a sophomore. Uncle Ralph boasted loudly between bites of turkey and stuffing. Youngest one in years. He's the real deal. A round of hearty congratulations followed as Theo grinned, basking in the glow of adoration and free-flowing wine. I told you he'd be the star of the family, Aunt Clara joined in gleefully. Brains and talent, he has it all, not to mention that beautiful girlfriend of his. She let out an exaggerated sigh. My, they will have the cutest baby someday. Can't you just picture it? More laughter and smiles of agreement rippled around the long table. I sank lower in my chair and pushed a few peas around my plate, face burning. His life did seem pretty perfect, I admitted resentfully to myself. Quarterback, straight A's, leggy blonde doting on his every word. With a dejected exhale, I let my eyes wander around the room, carefully avoiding the golden boy himself. As an involuntary reflex, my gaze landed on my sketchbook, peeking out from my bag in the corner behind Uncle Max's wingback chair. Just like its owner, tucked away, forgotten. Worthless. At that moment, Aunt Clara's grating voice cut through my gloom. It's such a shame not all young people live up to their potential. My eyes snapped to hers at the other end of the table. Her expression feigned sympathy, but I saw the malice flashing behind it. Poor Lila just drifts through life. I don't know how she'll ever amount to anything meaningful without some sparks flying up in that head of hers. Cold dread crept down my spine at the thinly veiled insult. Before I could open my mouth to respond, I felt a large hand firmly grasp my knee under the table. Uncle Max subtly shook his head, silently warning me not to engage. I bristled in frustration but held my tongue. Max gave my leg a supportive squeeze before removing his hand. Well, what about David? Aunt Edna chimed in nervously, attempting to reroute the conversation down safer terrain. How's that mathematics doctorate coming along? As the attention shifted, I quietly excused myself from the table. I strode swiftly to the corner and snatched up my sketchbook, fleeing to the dark solitude of the back porch. The cold night air bit at my wet cheeks, but I paid it no mind. I sank down on the porch steps, angrily swiping away tears. How dare she? I fumed, hands clenching and unclenching. Who is she to assume she knows my potential? After several shuddering breaths, my rage began to morph into despair. What if Aunt Clara was right? Maybe I would never amount to anything. I gazed forlornly down at my latest sketch, a portrait of Aunt Edna. The intricate details in her kind, wrinkled face had taken me hours to perfect. But what was the point if no one cared? It was worthless, just like me. A warm weight settled around my slumped shoulders, Uncle Max's wool coat. He eased down next to me with a soft groan, eyeglasses glinting in the moonlight. We sat without a word for several moments, my uneven breath sounding loud in the stillness. Finally, Max broke the heavy silence. Don't listen to her poison, Lila, he urged gently. She's just threatened by what she can't understand. He tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. But I understand, and I believe your art means something, just like you do. Tears spilled down my face once more, but this time they were tears of gratitude. I slipped quietly out the back door into the crisp night air, carefully closing it behind me before the sounds of the boisterous family gathering could follow me outside. I shrugged my jacket tighter around my shoulders against the chill. Autumn leaves crunched under my shoes as I made my way across the wide back porch and settled onto the wooden steps. Uncle Max and I had taken to meeting here, outside the stuffy, chaotic warmth of my aunt and uncle's home, where the family parties always took place. Here we could talk freely without judgmental ears listening in. Over the last few months since that painful Thanksgiving dinner, Max had become my ally and confidant. The back door creaked open, and I looked up to see Max's tall frame silhouetted in the golden light. He held up the pleated paper bag, clenched in his wrinkled hand, and waved it with a triumphant grin as he eased himself down beside me. Got them! Had to fight off Martha for the last package. He chuckled in his warm, gravelly tone. He pulled out 2 large sugar cookies, handing me one. I bit into the sweet icing with delight. Thanks, Uncle Max. You're the best. He smiled, his kind eyes twinkling behind his glasses in the dim glow of the porch light. I know they're your favorite. I figured you deserved something sweet after all that bitterness earlier. I sighed, smile fading. She's just never going to accept me, is she? Max shook his head. Oh, don't worry about Clara. She's set in her ways, but she's all talk. He gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. Now tell me what you've been up to. My mood lifted instantly. I applied to the Ridley Art Academy summer program. It's only a few weeks. But they have these amazing classes, and... Max held up a hand, eyes widening in surprise. Applied? Have you told your parents about this? I bit my lip, smile disappearing. No. Mom agrees with Aunt Clara that art is just silly hobby. They'd never take it seriously or support me. Max frowned, leaning back against the porch railing. He seemed to be turning something over in his mind. Lila, he finally said, your art, your dreams, they matter. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. He paused, brow furrowing in thought. In fact, I'd like to help, if you'll let me. I stared, confused but intrigued. Help how? Well, clearly Clara controls the family purse strings, but there are other resources. He reached out and took my hand, giving it an encouraging squeeze. Let me fund your art academy tuition, anonymously, of course, he added with a conspiratorial wink. It can be our secret. My eyes widened in disbelief. What? Uncle Max, that's incredibly generous, but I could never ask you to. He held up a hand. You're not asking, I'm offering. I believe in you, Lila, and I want to invest in that talent of yours before anyone tries to snuff it out. His words brought tears to my eyes. After years of discouragement, someone was finally taking me and my art seriously. I threw my arms around his neck in an impulsive hug. Thank you, I choked out through my tears. I promise I won't waste this opportunity. Max chuckled, patting my back gently. Of course you won't. I expect a full portfolio of new pieces when you get back. He pulled away, holding me by the shoulders and gazing at me intently. Just promise me that from now on, you'll start listening to your own voice instead of theirs. Deal? I took a deep breath and wiped the remaining moisture from my eyes, feeling as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from my soul. Deal? Deal. I crept up the creaky attic steps as stealthily as I could, clutching my latest art supply store purchase. Even with Uncle Max generously funding my artistic pursuits in secret for the past few months, I still felt like a fugitive, sneaking around behind my family's back. But the flush of excitement I felt unboxing shiny new artist pastels made the whole cloak and dagger act worthwhile. I had discovered I loved working with color almost as much as Mom disapproved of my artistic dabbling, as she called it. I smiled to myself, lifting the basement trapdoor slowly. Better to ask her forgiveness later than permission now. Just as the door was about to latch silently behind me, a shrill voice bellowed up from below. Lila Grace, what in heaven's name are you doing up there? Aunt Clara's harsh tones echoed off the attic walls, causing me to jump. The pastels tumbled out of my hands, clattering down the steps along with my heart. Nothing, Aunt Clara, I stammered, scrambling to collect my forbidden treasures strewn across the aging floorboards before she ascended. My efforts were in vain, however, as her heavy footsteps soon thudded behind me. I wheeled around to find Clara glaring down at the vibrant sticks gripped in my hands, eyebrows raised. Wordlessly, she extended her palm. Sheepishly, I handed her the receipt, clutched in my other hand. Squinting through her bifocals, she examined it for several moments while I held my breath. $84.76, she finally exclaimed. You spent nearly $100 on coloring sticks? They're oil pastels, I corrected under my breath. Her sharp eyes snapped to mine. What was that? I shrank back against the chill wall. Nothing. I just used some extra babysitting money, that's all. Seems like quite a lot of babysitting, she said skeptically. And just what do you plan to do with these anyway? Before I could respond, the attic door unexpectedly swung open. We both turned to see Uncle Max mount the last step, slightly out of breath. There you both are. They're asking for you downstairs, Claire. He addressed my aunt lightly, but his eyes remained steadily locked with mine. Clara glanced between us, lips pursed in suspicion, but she merely let out an impatient huff before tossing the receipt to the floor. We're not done discussing your little shopping addiction, young lady, she snapped as she brushed past Max. Once her footsteps retreated, I let out the breath I had been holding. Thank you, I exhaled with relief. Max brushed aside my gratitude with a wave of his hand. Don't worry about her. Yet behind his casual tone, his brows knitted with concern. I sighed, sadness suddenly deflating my mood as I sunk down onto an old cedar chest. She's right, though. I can't keep sneaking around like this forever. I lifted my gaze to meet my uncle's kind eyes. Especially using money you work so hard for. It's too much, I confessed softly. Max crossed the room and crouched down in front of me, gently cupping my chin in his aged hand. Nonsense. That light I see ignite in you when you create is worth every penny. Don't let Clara make you feel otherwise, he urged. His voice took on an icy edge. And don't you dare give up. My eyes misted over with emotion. I covered his sturdy hand with my own trembling one. I won't, I promised in a whisper. As long as you believe in me. Max smiled then, a smile so warm and full of affection that in that moment I felt I could conquer anything. I paced the threadbare living room carpet, absently winding a lock of hair around my finger. The early morning sun streamed in through the crocheted curtains, glinting off the crystal vase on the coffee table. Usually the colorful wildflowers Aunt Edna lovingly arranged lifted my mood, but today I barely noticed them. What's got you wearing a groove into my rug so early, child? I spun to find Edna peering at me curiously from the doorway, already impeccably dressed for the day ahead despite the early hour. I smiled weakly, clearing my throat. "Just thinking about the regional young artist competition," I explained, aiming unsuccessfully for a casual tone. "The application deadline is at the end of the week." Edna nodded knowingly as she settled herself onto the overstuffed sofa. "Clara still refuses to support such nonsense, She made air quotes with her manicured fingers, eliciting a small chuckle from me despite the circumstances. My fleeting laughter quickly faded back into a grimace. "She said if I waste my time entering, I'm also wasting her money. Basically, she's threatening to cut me off if I apply." My shoulders slumped dejectedly at the memory of my aunt's cruel ultimatum from the night before. Before the defeat could fully settle across my face, I felt Edna's graceful hand under my chin, gently tilting my eyes back up to meet her earnest gaze. "Lila, has Clara ever created anything of beauty or value in her entire life?" she asked pointedly. I slowly shook my head, confused but captivated by the sudden fire in her tone. "No. Yet for some bizarre reason, she still believes she is entitled to have authority over yours," Edna continued. Her eyes softened then, brow creasing in motherly concern as she brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Promise me you won't allow her to dictate your worth, sweetheart," she implored. "Don't sacrifice your talent to satisfy that bitter, jealous snake of a woman. She doesn't deserve that power over you." I blinked back the hot tears suddenly burning behind my eyes. Overcome with emotion, I wrapped my arms around her slender shoulders. "Thank you, Aunt Edna," I whispered into her soft gray hair. In response, she squeezed me tightly, patting my back with her smooth hand. As we finally pulled apart, I caught sight of Uncle Max standing quietly in the doorway behind us. Our eyes met, a silent question hanging between us. "Well, what now?" I took a deep, shaky breath. Hope and fear dueled within me. But seeing the unwavering conviction shining from Max's gaze, I knew I only had one real option. I turned back to Edna with newfound resolve. "You're both right. She doesn't control me. I'm submitting my portfolio, with or without her approval." A slow grin spread across my uncle's wrinkled face. Edna let out a delighted laugh, lightly swatting my knee. "Atta girl!" Max pronounced proudly. He gestured to the unseen painting upstairs that he had secretly financed for my application. "Now, let's make sure they see exactly what they'll be missing out on." Buoyed by their belief in me, I marched from the room with fresh purpose fueling every step. I was through hiding myself and my art away. For the first time, I felt brave enough to stand up for my dreams, no matter the cost. I took a deep, centering breath as I pushed open the tall glass gallery doors. The familiar smells of paint, turpentine, and fresh lacquer washed over me, instantly sparking my creativity. I felt at home here among these floors and walls that showcased artistic vision instead of suppressing it. Unlike my own home, I thought ruefully. I wound through the maze of partition walls displaying the regional Young Artists Contest submissions, searching for my collection. My heels clicked crisply on the polished concrete floors, echoing through the cavernous space. Despite having captured first prize in the competition last month, the thrill of that victory had been short-lived. Oh sure, Edna and Max had celebrated exuberantly on my behalf, toasting my talent with a bottle of contraband champagne, but my parents could barely mutter a half-hearted congratulations through tight lips. Mother refused to even glance at the museum passes and tuition voucher the contest awarded me. And Aunt Clara, she had flown into such a jealous rage when she learned of my win that she stormed off in disgust, vowing to never speak to me again. Her reaction still stung, marring what should have been a shining moment of validation. I rounded a corner, and there suddenly were my paintings, a collection of vivid, abstract cityscapes titled Overlooked Beauty. I traced a gentle finger down the gilded plaque bearing my name, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. No matter their reaction, this was still an incredible honor at just 18. These pieces represented my true vision, not anyone else's expectations of what art or my future should look like. My smile slipped as footsteps echoed behind me, followed by a grating chuckle that could only belong to one person. I steeled myself as Clara's scowl appeared over my shoulder in the painting's reflective glass. "Well, it's about time you grew up and started painting something worthwhile," she proclaimed with begrudging approval. Her critical eye assessed the building's luminous geometries and brooding alleyways. At least these I can actually recognize as art, instead of that avant-garde nonsense you usually dirty a canvas with. I clenched my fists behind my back, holding back the acid retort on the tip of my tongue. As I met her baleful gaze in the glass, I realized defending my work was no longer needed. The prize ribbons did that for me now. I simply cleared my throat and gestured to a nearby painting of a crumbling liquor store glowing vibrantly against a stormy sky. The buildings no one else notices often hold the most beauty inside, I offered mildly. It's all about perspective. Clara narrowed her eyes, processing the subtle meaning behind my words. Before she could supply a scathing rebuttal, however, Max suddenly materialized beside us. "There you both are. Lila, the gallery director, is looking for you," he interjected smoothly, placing a proprietary hand on my shoulder. "The mayor wants to discuss commissioning a city mural. Shall we?" He guided me away without another glance at Clara's dumbfounded expression. As we walked, I felt lighter and more self-assured than I had in years. The Aunt Claras of the world would always try to hide my shine out of jealousy. But it was getting far harder to dim my inner light these days, especially with Uncle Max so devoted to stoking my creative fire. A waiter crossed in front of me, obscuring my view of the gallery's entrance for a moment. I tracked him impatiently with my eyes as he wove through the well-dressed crowd, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres on a silver platter. When he finally moved aside, I caught sight of Aunt Clara making yet another dramatic entrance. I grimaced to myself behind my own champagne flute. Trust Clara to be fashionably late to an event celebrating someone else's success. She glided into the gallery in a slinky black dress more suited to a cocktail party than an art show, air-kissing the room as all eyes turned to admire her. I noticed more than a few men's gazes linger a bit too long on her overly accentuated curves as she held court. "Quite an eye-catching woman," Max commented discreetly as he appeared beside me, following my irritated gaze. "She knows it too," I muttered before taking another sip. "But let her preen. Tonight is about my art, not her." Max smiled and clinked his glass gently against mine. "I'll toast to that." Any further conversation was interrupted by the gallery director's amplified voice welcoming the crowd. I thanked her politely as she congratulated me on the turnout and praised my evocative urban scenes. As she moved away to confer briefly with the curator, Clara slinked up in her wake. "Well, congratulations, dear," she purred with mock sincerity, air-kissing my cheek. "Who knew your silly little pastime might actually lead somewhere?" Her patronizing smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose beauty is subjective after all. I resisted the urge to wipe off her cloying lipstick. "How gracious of you to come, Aunt Clara," I replied evenly instead, "since I know how subjective creative pursuits can be for you." Clara's painted smile faded slightly. Before she could supply what was surely a scorching retort, the director returned to the microphone, bringing the chatter to a close. "Again, we are so pleased to showcase this promising young talent's unique perspective," she said, gesturing toward me. "It's clear Lila has a fresh, meaningful artistic vision, one that her Uncle Max should be very proud of cultivating." Murmurs of appreciation echoed from the audience along with a smattering of applause. Clara's head swiveled sharply between me and Max. Under the weight of her glare, understanding visibly dawned across her primped features, followed swiftly by outrage. But before she could cause a scene, I stepped forward, holding up a gracious hand to acknowledge the accolades. "Actually, my Aunt Clara deserves quite a lot of credit for the inspiration behind this collection," I interjected smoothly into the microphone. "In fact, the title, Overlooked Beauty, is an homage to her unique perspective on my creative potential over the years." I turned to lock eyes with Clara, whose face had turned nearly purple. But true vision lies in those willing to look closer and nurture unseen gifts, not suppress them, regardless of popular opinion. I smiled benignly. "Don't you agree, Aunt Clara?" Her mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish under the weight of too many eyes and the hidden accusation in my words. For once it seemed Clara had no clever retort or searing glance to offer in return. I smiled wider. "I thought so. Cheers to fresh vision." "Then," I declared brightly, raising my glass, The crowd, oblivious to our true conversational undercurrents, echoed my toast eagerly, much to Aunt Clara's dismay. I stepped back to scrutinize my latest mural sketch, pencil smudges staining my hands. The city council had commissioned a stylized landscape to adorn the community center's remodeled facade. I wanted it to capture the neighborhood's vitality and cultural roots. As I reached for a rag to wipe the charcoal from my fingers, my phone vibrated loudly against the work table. I smiled involuntarily when I saw Uncle Max's face flash on the cracked screen. "Working hard as always," he exclaimed when I answered. His warm approval still caused a glow of pride to swell in my chest. "Just trying to do justice to the Irvington district," I replied, holding up my drawing to the light. "But it's getting there." "Well, make sure to take a break soon to eat," Max gently scolded. "We need to keep that brilliant artistic mind of yours fed, after all." I laughed. "I will, and thank you, Uncle Max." "You can thank me by letting me take you out tonight to celebrate properly," he insisted. "The whole family is getting together at Ambrosia, and I want to toast my world-famous niece." My smile faltered slightly. World-famous might be stretching it a bit, and honestly, I'd rather skip another tense family dinner if it's all the same to you. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I instantly regretted declining his sweet offer, but the idea of facing Aunt Clara and her scorn even now, months later, still made my stomach turn. The wounds from her resentment ran deep. Max cleared his throat gently. "Well, I understand if you're still feeling raw, but for what it's worth, Clara has been trying to make amends lately." I snorted in disbelief. "Clara doesn't do amends." "I'm serious," Max insisted. "She knows she behaved wretchedly. Don't you think she at least deserves a chance for old time's sake?" I bit my lip, considering. The genuine entreaty in his voice gave me pause. And he had a point. Holding grudges had never been in my nature. I sighed deeply. Okay, I'll be the bigger person, but I'm not promising anything more than basic civility." Max chuckled, clearly pleased. "That's all I ask. I'll swing by at 7 to get you. See you soon." I set down the phone with a reluctant smile. One tense dinner couldn't derail my newfound creative joy and confidence, and if Aunt Clara was genuinely ready to bury the hatchet, then maybe, just maybe, it was time I did too. After changing into a smart blouse and slacks, I gave my hair a final fluff in the hall mirror right as the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, sent up a quick prayer for patience, and went to greet my uncle. To my surprise, however, Aunt Clara's perfectly made-up face peered nervously at me instead when I opened the door. "Oh, good, you're home," she exhaled, clearly relieved. She smoothed her hands down her simple black sheath. "I was hoping we could talk privately before dinner." I stared wordlessly as a contrite Clara glanced at her heels. "May I come in?" "You must have lost your way," were the chilling words Marla uttered, her voice laced with faux concern as I found myself unable to enter my own home, my key futile against the new locks. I stood frozen on the porch, disbelief and anger brewing inside me as I stared at the smug expression on my mother-in-law's face. At 58, Marla still exuded an air of aristocracy and old money, draped in designer clothes and jewelry that sharply contrasted my casual, thrift store-inspired style. "What's going on, Marla?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. "Why can't I get into my house?" "Oh, sweetie, I think you're confused," Marla replied, her words dripping with condescension. "This is my son Elliot's house. Now why don't you run along home to your little apartment?" My hands curled into fists as I fought the urge to grab Marla and force my way inside. This was the house I had grown up in, that my parents had left to me when they passed away last year. Elliot and I had spent the last 6 months renovating it, infusing each room with special touches that represented our shared vision for our future. This was my sanctuary, my pride and joy. And now Marla was trying to take it all away. "Don't play games with me," I said sharply. "You know very well this is my house. Now open the door and let me in." Marla sighed theatrically. "I'm afraid that's simply not possible. You see, Elliot signed the house over to me for safekeeping while he's away on business. We can't have undesirables barging in now, can we?" My blood boiled at her words. Elliot, my husband of 5 years, was currently on an extended work trip in Japan. He always fretted about me being alone, but I cherished my independence. Little did I know, He had made arrangements behind my back and given his manipulative mother total control in his absence. I took a deep breath, willing myself to remain calm. Elliot would never sign over my house without talking to me first. You're lying, Marla. Am I? She challenged, her brown eyes glinting. Why don't you give my darling son a call and find out? I wanted nothing more than to wipe that smug look off Marla's face. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. Fine. I'll call Elliot and clear this whole thing up, I replied evenly. But don't get too comfortable in my home. You won't be staying long. Marla merely chuckled and waved her fingers at me in farewell. As I walked down the front steps, I turned to see her disappear inside, closing the door firmly behind her. Rage and disbelief warred within me as I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house I had poured my heart into. Marla had always resented my common upbringing, believing her precious architect son could do better than a freelance graphic designer. But I never imagined her snobbery and disdain would manifest in something so cruel. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Elliot's number. He answered on the third ring, his cheerful voice like a balm to my soul. I quickly explained what had happened with Marla. A heavy silence followed, broken only by Elliot's deep sigh. Corinne, there's something I have to tell you. I can't believe you would do this to me, I said, my voice trembling as I paced the small confines of my studio apartment. On the video call, Elliot looked back at me helplessly. I'm so sorry, Corinne. I never meant for it to happen this way. My mother ambushed me with the paperwork just as I was leaving for the airport. She claimed it was just a temporary measure for emergencies. I didn't realize she had other plans. I raked my fingers through my hair in frustration. Your mother has always hated me. How could you think giving her any control over my house was a good idea? You're right. I messed up, Elliot admitted. I let my mother manipulate me, and you're paying the price. I sighed, my anger dissipating. I knew Marla's conniving ways all too well. Well, it's done now. We need to focus on getting my house back. I'll be home as soon as I can. We'll sort this out, I promise, Elliot replied. We said our goodbyes, and I sank down onto my lumpy mattress, wondering how I had gone from renovating my childhood home to being effectively homeless in just one day. Over the next few days, I settled into a routine. Each morning, I stopped by the house, knocking loudly despite knowing Marla wouldn't let me in. I needed her to know I wasn't going anywhere. Afternoons were spent at coffee shops, using their Wi-Fi to work on freelance design projects. Evenings were reserved for takeout food and strategizing my next moves with my friend Julia over the phone. Nearly a week had passed when I returned to the house one morning to find the front door unexpectedly ajar. I entered cautiously, surprised by the drastic changes that had already taken place. The beautiful pottery and artwork I had proudly displayed were gone, replaced by garish paintings I recognized from Marla's previous home. My cozy, bohemian furnishings had disappeared, swapped for stiff, antique pieces that exuded cold formality. Hello, dear, I hope you like what I've done with the place. Marla's falsely sweet voice rang out as she sashayed into the room. I bit my tongue to stop myself from screaming at her. Didn't take you long to make yourself at home, I said bitterly. Well, it is my home now, Marla replied snidely. Anyway, I'm hosting the Ladies' Society tea here tomorrow. I assume you can show yourself out? I stood there fuming as she prattled on about plans for redecorating the kitchen and removing the flower garden I had painstakingly nurtured. It was clear she intended to erase any trace of me from this house, from my colorful tiles in the bathroom to the secret hideout Elliot and I had built as kids. Just remember, this isn't over, I told Marla as I left, catching a glimpse of her scowling before the door slammed shut behind me. As I walked back to my car, I took some deep breaths, trying to regain my composure. I knew Marla's scheme was only beginning, and I would need to be strategic and resilient to survive this battle. But as I caught sight of my childhood home one last time, I made a vow. One way or another, I was taking back what was mine. The next few weeks were agonizing. Marla's presence seemed to infest every aspect of my life, no matter how hard I tried to avoid her. She hijacked the weekly neighborhood potluck, critiquing my common potato salad recipe and insisting on upscale catering instead. When I volunteered at the community garden, she was suddenly everywhere, gossiping loudly about my unladylike appearance. At the grocery store one day, I overheard her telling the cashier about Elliot's gold-digging wife who married him for his money. I had to stop myself from dumping my cart of items over her primly styled hair. The final straw came when she crashed the annual fundraising gala for the youth art program I had helped launch. I was mingling with donors when Marla appeared, interrupting every conversation to shift focus towards herself. "You'll have to excuse my daughter-in-law's eccentric taste in fashion," she simpered to a businessman I was speaking with. "I do wish Elliot had chosen someone a bit more polished, but we make do." I clenched my fist tightly around my champagne glass to stop it from shaking. The past few weeks of Marla's non-stop attacks had pushed me to my breaking point. I wanted nothing more than to scream at her to stop ruining my life, but I knew that's exactly what she wanted, a public spectacle that made me look deranged. So I quietly excused myself from the conversation and slipped outside, taking deep breaths of the cool night air. I tried Elliot's number again, but my call went straight to voicemail. With his long hours and remote job site, our communication had dwindled to quick check-ins and fuzzy video calls. I had never felt more alone. I steeled myself and went back inside, avoiding Marla for the rest of the evening. When I arrived home that night, I realized she had escalated her sabotage. A large moving truck was parked outside, and 2 burly men were hauling my furniture and belongings out the front door. "What are you doing?" I cried, rushing over. "Just doing a bit of redecorating, dear," Marla called out from the porch, smirking. "I donated your tacky old things to charity. Don't worry, the new items will be much more elegant." I helplessly watched years of my collected items disappear into the truck. The quilt my grandmother had stitched, the retro table Elliot had refurbished for my birthday, the overstuffed sofa covered in memories. Soon, nothing remained but empty rooms and the biting scent of fresh paint. Numbly, I entered my tiny apartment. Any remaining energy had been sapped, replaced by a cold sense of hopelessness. I had tried to fight back subtly against Marla, but at every turn she had outmaneuvered me. As I lay in bed that night, darkness clawing at the edges of my mind, a single thought emerged like a flicker of light. If I couldn't win by playing nice, it was time to get tough. Marla wanted a war? That's exactly what she would get. The next morning, I began to plan my counterattack. I sat staring in disbelief at the legal document in my hands, the words blurring together. Marla hadn't just manipulated her way into my home. She had actually made herself a co-owner through fraudulent means. According to the paperwork, she had produced a handwritten will, supposedly left by my late father, stating he wanted Marla to have joint custody of the house. But I knew without a doubt it was fake. My father had made me the sole beneficiary in his official will, leaving me the house and small inheritance. Marla had woven an elaborate scheme to steal everything. I sucked in a sharp breath, trying to calm the rage bubbling inside me. After speaking with my lawyer, I now understood the full extent of Marla's deceit. She had been planning this for a while, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and I had played right into her hands by not having my own name added to the property records once I inherited it. Marla must have fabricated the will, bribed an official, and then coerced Elliot into signing over temporary rights in his absence. She knew I didn't have the proper legal documentation to fight back, or the money for a prolonged legal battle. I had spent the last few days camped out in my car near the house, only leaving to use the gym showers and pick up snacks. I was determined to confront Marla face to face about her duplicity. When her Cadillac finally pulled into the driveway, I leaped out of my car and rushed over before she could escape inside. "Well, look who it is," Marla sneered. "Come to beg for money, or just to admire my lovely new landscaping?" "Cut the act, Marla," I snapped. "I know what you did. You forged a will so you could steal my house." I waved the document in her face. Marla glanced at it casually, then met my gaze with an icy stare. "I have no idea what you're talking about, but clearly the stress has become too much for you." She spoke slowly, as if addressing a child throwing a tantrum. "Enough!" I shouted, finally losing my cool. "That will is fake, and you know it. My father would never have left you anything. You're a lying, manipulative thief." For a long moment we stood there, eyes locked, the truth hanging nakedly between us. Then Marla's lips curled into a sinister smile. Sweet, naive girl. Even if what you're alleging is true, do you really think you can stop me? I hold all the power now. The law, money, status, it's all on my side. She leaned in close, her cultured voice dropping to a venomous hiss. Face it, you don't belong here. Why don't you crawl back to the gutter where you came from? I recoiled at her words, the pain cutting deeply. But the initial anguish quickly transformed into iron resolve. I had tried handling this legally and ethically, and it had failed. Now it was time for a new strategy, no matter how extreme. Marla seemed to sense the shift in me. For the first time, a shadow of uncertainty flickered across her face. I gave her a thin smile. You're right about one thing, Marla. You've held all the power until now, but that ends today. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing agape on the sidewalk. I had a lot of planning to do and nothing to lose. The time had come for war. Over the next few weeks, I became consumed with gathering evidence against Marla. I knew I needed hard proof of her deceit if I had any hope of reclaiming my house legally. I started with the fake will, working with a lawyer friend to analyze the document. We discovered anomalies, the wrong type of paper, a font that didn't exist when my father was alive. It was enough to cast serious doubts about its authenticity. Next, I reached out to my father's old business partner, someone I knew Marla had been cozying up to for years. After some persuasion, he finally admitted she had asked him to act as a witness and verify the will. The final piece fell into place. I also began trailing Marla, documenting her activities and conversations. Most days she flitted aimlessly around town, a bored socialite looking to stir up drama. But she seemed to have a weekly appointment that piqued my interest, a visit to a rundown apartment building on the edge of town. One overcast Tuesday, I followed Marla's Cadillac to the familiar spot and watched her disappear inside. A few minutes later, she emerged looking worried, accompanied by a squat, nervous-looking man I recognized as the town clerk. After exchanging whispered words and passing a thick envelope, they quickly parted ways. My mind raced with possibilities. Blackmail? Bribery? Either way, this man clearly knew secrets that could threaten Marla's polished veneer. Over the next few weeks, I continued tailing Marla, compiling a detailed record of her activities and odd meetings. Her mask of aristocracy and moral superiority had slipped, revealing deceit and corruption. I wanted it all exposed. The final piece fell into place when I convinced the nervous clerk to meet me one night for drinks. A few rounds later, his lips started to loosen, confessing how Marla had paid him handsomely over the years to conveniently lose certain records and speed along questionable documents. Armed with this arsenal of evidence, I requested an emergency hearing with the judge overseeing my house dispute. My lawyer and I laid out the paper trail of fraud and deception Marla had perpetrated to gain control. After reviewing the proof, the judge agreed to freeze all actions relating to the property's ownership until a full investigation could be completed. For the first time in months, I felt empowered again. The law had failed me before, but now justice finally seemed within reach. Marla must have realized her scheme was unraveling. She became a ghost, her usual swarm of social activity ceasing. No more smug morning jogs past my car. No more popping into restaurants to loudly discuss her summer plans for my home improvements. But her disappearance didn't fool me. I knew this temporary retreat was just the quiet before the storm, a chance for her to strategize how she could regain the upper hand. Well, I was done being strategic. Marla wanted an all-out war, I would give her one. And this time, only one of us was walking away victorious. The day of the showdown arrived. Armed with my evidence, I marched up to the front door of my house, ready to confront Marla for the last time. Before I could knock, the door swung open abruptly. Marla stood there scowling, clearly perturbed that I had caught her off guard. "What do you want now?" she snapped. "We need to talk," I replied evenly. "May I come in?" Marla hesitated before reluctantly stepping aside. I crossed the threshold, my emotions swirling as I stood in the home that had been stolen from me. Nothing looked familiar anymore. My bohemian decor had been replaced by gaudy antiques and impersonal minimalism. But underneath Marla's superficial touches, the heart and bones of the home remained. The flow of the rooms my mother had designed, the creaks in the floorboards my father had never fixed. I took a deep breath. I know what you did, Marla. The will was fake. You bribed the clerk. You have no legal right to my house. Marla scoffed. You have no proof of these ridiculous allegations. I'm growing very tired of your harassment. I held her icy gaze unflinchingly. Actually, I have plenty of proof. Sworn statements exposing your lies, records of your shady dealings. I know enough to destroy your facade of respectability. Marla's defiant expression wavered slightly. I pressed my advantage. It's over. Your schemes stop now. Vacate my home immediately, or I take this evidence to court and ensure you face charges. Heavy silence descended as Marla stared at me stone-faced. For a moment I thought she might actually acquiesce. Then her lips curled into a sneer. Do you think a few pieces of paper can scare me? I built an empire while you still clung to your parents' apron strings. No one will believe the delusional ramblings of a petty little... Mom, stop. We both turned in shock at the newcomer's voice. Elliot stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, his face etched with grief and disappointment. Marla's haughty demeanor instantly melted. Elliot, you're home early. She scurried over, attempting an embrace. He held up a hand. I heard enough, Mom. Corinne told me everything. How could you betray me like this? She's lying. Marla shrieked, pointing a manicured finger my way. I'm the victim here. This vindictive girl has done nothing but spew vicious untruths since the day you married her. No more lies, Elliot thundered. I made excuses for you my whole life, but I won't let you hurt my family anymore. He moved to stand by my side, slipping his hand into mine. Marla gaped at him in disbelief. Darling, please, be reasonable, she implored, her voice cracking. I'm done being reasonable, Elliot replied wearily. This ends today. Vacate Corinne's home now and never bother us again. Marla stared wildly between us, the madness clear in her eyes. For a moment I thought she might lash out physically in a final desperate act, but Elliot's stoic presence kept her contained. Finally, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Without another word, she shoved past us and disappeared into the guest room, emerging minutes later with 2 hastily packed suitcases. Elliot kept his eyes trained on the floor as his mother paused next to him, waiting for some show of affection, forgiveness, anything. But he remained stony and silent. The click of her heels faded as Marla retreated down the walk. I watched through the window as her Cadillac glided away, disappearing around the corner, perhaps for the last time. In the weeks following Marla's eviction, Elliot and I worked non-stop to reclaim the house. We boxed up her garish furnishings and listed them for sale, using the money to restore the cozy bohemian aesthetic I had lovingly created. Elliot immersed himself in repairing the structural damage Marla had wreaked, while I scrubbed away every trace of her, wanting to cleanse the home of her poisonous presence. We received regular vitriolic calls and texts from Marla, who was now living in a budget motel on the edge of town. Her life of leisure had been permanently disrupted. With her web of lies exposed, old social contacts had abandoned her. Even the lawyers she approached refused to represent someone with her reputation. She was well and truly friendless for the first time in her privileged life. I almost felt pity seeing how far the once untouchable socialite had fallen. But the sting of her cruelty and deception still burned too freshly. Maybe we should change the locks and security codes, just in case, I suggested to Elliot one evening, after an especially nasty series of messages from Marla blaming us for her downfall. Elliot nodded warily. Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. She's clearly becoming more unhinged. We were sipping coffee the next morning when we heard the pounding at the front door. I jumped nervously, but Elliot gave my hand a reassuring squeeze as we made our way to the foyer. I peered through the side window and groaned. Marla stood on the porch. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, clutching a bulging folder of papers. Her fist pummeled the door relentlessly. I swung it open, noting Marla swayed slightly in her impractical stiletto heels. What do you want, Marla? Elliot asked with forced patience. I want back what's owed to me, Marla shrieked. This is my home, too. I have a legal right. She shook the folder violently at us. I stifled a bitter laugh. Still clinging to the lies, Marla? That forged will didn't work before. It won't work now. Marla's bloodshot eyes narrowed. Oh, this has nothing to do with the will. I'm referring to my claim as co-signer on this property's mortgage. She flashed a smug grin as Elliot and I exchanged stunned looks. In all the drama, we had overlooked this crucial financial detail. Sensing our realization, Marla cackled. You didn't actually think I'd hand over my main leverage so foolishly, did you? As long as I'm tied to that mortgage, I have a path back in. So I suggest. No need. The mortgage has been paid off. Elliot's calm words cut through Marla's tirade. Her face went slack. What are you talking about? She stammered. I liquidated my inheritance and paid off the entire mortgage 2 days ago, Elliot explained, crossing his arms. You have no claim here anymore. Marla stared at him in disbelief as the folder of papers slipped from her grasp, scattering across the porch. It's over, Mother, Elliot stated firmly. Now please leave before I have to call the police. For once, Marla had no venomous retort, no more schemes to wield. She backed away silently, teetering on her heels as she retreated to her weathered car. Elliot slipped his arm around me as we watched her go. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the sunlight wash over us, bathing everything in hopeful clarity. Perhaps this drawn-out war was finally nearing its end. And emerging from the rubble, Elliot and I had somehow found each other again. The weeks after Marla's final defeat passed in a blur. Elliot and I threw ourselves into restoring normalcy, filling the rooms with love and light once more. We unpacked my eccentric art and vintage finds from storage, arranging them alongside Elliot's architectural drawings and photography. The house slowly began to feel like ours again. Workers helped repair the structural damage and cosmetic sabotage Marla had caused in her zealous renovations. Elliot redesigned parts of the space to be more accessible for any future children we hope to have. Meanwhile, I returned to pursuing my freelance graphic design work, setting up a small home studio. It felt healing to nurture my own passion again. Within a few months, I had built up a robust client list and transitioned my work into a thriving online business. Elliot and I also focused on strengthening the bonds Marla had strained, hosting potlucks with generous neighbors who forgave my absence, having long talks with friends to clear up her malicious gossip. To our relief, we received word that Marla planned to move to another state permanently, wanting a fresh start far removed from her ruined reputation here. We changed the locks one final time, just in case. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, we finally declared the house restored. To celebrate, we hosted an elaborate backyard barbecue. Twinkling lights were strung across the trees, music filled the air, and laughter carried on the breeze. It was a new beginning for everyone. Amongst the festivities, Elliot surprised me by dropping to one knee, presenting me with his late grandmother's ring set in a new band. I know we've been through so much hardship already as a married couple, he began emotionally, but I wanted to give you this as a symbol of a fresh start. So will you renew our vows with me? Through joyful tears, I said yes, embracing my husband tightly. The people around us broke into cheers and applause. It felt like all the brokenness was truly behind us. On a cool evening a few weeks later, we held an intimate lakeside ceremony as the sun set brilliantly behind the trees. Surrounded by close friends and neighbors, we recommitted ourselves to each other after all we had endured. The struggles of the past year had tested us in every way possible, but ultimately the shared trauma had reforged an unbreakable bond between Elliot and I. Later that night, I rested my head contentedly on my husband's chest as we swayed together under the fairy lights twinkling on our back patio. No matter what she tried, your mother could never destroy this, Elliot said softly, pulling me closer. I smiled up at him. Our love was always stronger than her hate. He leaned down and kissed me tenderly, the adoration in his eyes washing away any remaining shadows of the past. As we turned slowly on the dance floor, the glow from our home enveloped us in warmth. The house was no longer just brick and wood. It now embodied our resilience. With Elliot's hand firmly grasping mine, I knew I had the strength to withstand anything life threw our way next. Marla's bitterness had forged us into warriors, and together we had emerged victorious. Really, Lila, still playing the martyr? Or just waiting to cash in on sympathy? Derek's mocking tone cut through the bustle of the crowded cafe, turning heads at nearby tables. I took a slow, steadying breath, willing my hands not to tremble as I set down my coffee cup. After walking out 5 years ago, leaving me struggling alone with 2 teenagers, Derek waltzed back into my life as though no time had passed. Seeing him smiling smugly, I wanted to scream, to throw my scalding coffee in his face. Instead, I met his gaze and gave a thin smile. Still as charming as ever, I see. Ava and Ethan weren't here to restrain me this time. My daughter would have placed a gentle hand on my arm, while my son glared daggers at his father. I couldn't afford to make a scene. The owner knew me as a regular, not an unstable drama queen. Come on, Lila. No need to be so hostile. Derek slid into the seat across from me, oblivious to my tension. I just wanted to see how you're getting on. It can't have been easy, raising 2 kids alone, but you always did love playing the victim. The audacity boiled my blood. I pictured my long nights working freelance design jobs, trying desperately to keep the power on as Derek traveled the world with his young girlfriend, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing my struggle. Oh, finding work was tricky at first. I waved a hand breezily. But you know me, I managed all right. Managed, please. We both know you were left cash-strapped from the divorce. Derek raised an eyebrow. But I suppose the kids helped you scrape by. The barb stung. Derek knew firsthand the sacrifices Ava and Ethan had made, giving up their college funds so we wouldn't lose the house. He just didn't care. I ground my teeth, holding back a retort. Derek eyed me curiously. You're looking almost well-rested. Found someone to bankroll you these days? I let out a short, sharp laugh. If only he knew. Last week, I discovered my late mother-in-law had left half her estate to me in her will. She knew her son had abandoned his family. Her last act was ensuring I had the means to rebuild. Irony truly was delicious. Oh, just a few freelance jobs here and there, I shrugged, letting Derek interpret things however he wished. His eyes narrowed, clearly unhappy with my vague response. I felt a spark of satisfaction. After everything he'd put me through, keeping him guessing was the least I could do. Where was that slimy new girlfriend of his anyway? You can drop the act, Lila, Derek snapped. We both know you don't have 2 nickels to rub together. I raised an eyebrow. Careful with those assumptions. Things change. Derek stared at me, frustration etched on his face. I let the silence hang between us. Finally, he leaned back, an oily smile on his face. Well, I'm glad one of us managed to turn things around after, everything. He made a vague gesture with his hand, as if our split had been some impersonal corporate downsizing and not his conscious choice to walk out. Anyway, I should get going. Maybe we can all catch up sometime soon? Sure, Derek. I kept my tone neutral. We'll be in touch. As he walked out the door, I allowed myself a triumphant smile. Derek could keep guessing about my little windfall, at least for now. I had plans for that money. Plans I'd been crafting since the day he left me standing numbly in the rubble of our old life. The time had come for Derek to learn exactly what I was capable of. I could still picture the lawyer's stunned face when I walked into his plush office last week. Mrs. West, please have a seat. I perched on the edge of the leather chair, clutching my purse. After Derek left, I'd gotten used to waiting in dingy government offices, hoping for assistance. This place felt different. The lawyer fiddled with a file on his polished desk before meeting my eyes. I apologize for the surprise visit, Mrs. West. I'm sure you're wondering why I asked you here today. I nodded mutely. Well, I handled the estate of Derek's late mother, Betty West, and she left specific instructions that you were to be informed once the estate was settled. Shock rooted me in place. Derek's mother and I had always been close, despite her son's flaws. She'd even subtly supported me leaving Derek in the end. Not that I could afford a divorce lawyer on my tiny income, but I never imagined. Instructions regarding what, exactly? My voice sounded hoarse to my ears. Mrs. West left you a sizable portion of her estate, Mrs. Lila, half to be precise. The room spun. Derek's mother had virtually cut out her only son, instead providing for me and her abandoned grandchildren. Tears burned in my eyes. After everything she'd witnessed of Derek's behavior, she passed her final judgment through this gesture. This is unbelievable, I whispered. It must be some mistake. No mistake, the lawyer assured me. He slid a paper across the slick desk. As I scanned the legal document, disbelief gave way to a fiery satisfaction. With these funds, I could provide my children the stable home Derek had yanked away. More importantly, Betty had unknowingly armed me with the means to finally teach my selfish ex a lesson. I raised my eyes to the lawyer's expectant face. Please convey my deepest thanks to Mrs. West. I don't know how to repay this gesture. He nodded. Your resilience and strength of character is repayment enough, Mrs. West. Betty always said you held the family together. I managed a shaky smile, the beginnings of a plan already churning in my mind. Derek had no clue what was coming for him. Now, nearly a week later, I still grin thinking of Derek's pompous swagger. He has no idea the ammunition his own mother provided against him from beyond the grave. Pulling into the driveway, I spot Ava trailing slowly behind her brother towards the house. Weighed down by their overflowing backpacks, I hurry over to help lighten their load. Rough first week? The usual, mutters Ethan, averting his eyes. I don't press him for details. The move to a new school had already been hard enough without his father's sudden reappearance. Ava offers me a wan smile. I'm all right, Mom. Class is going fine so far. My brave, empathetic girl. I pull her into a quick hug before urging them towards the house. No need to delay sharing my news. Their stunned faces and exclamations of disbelief draw the first carefree laughter from me in ages. Soon, I vow silently, soon we'll give your father exactly what he deserves. Mom, is all this really necessary? Ethan's brows knit together as I lay out brochures on the dining table. Completely necessary, I confirm, lining them up neatly. You both deserve a chance to pursue your dreams. Now we can actually afford that chance. Ava traces her finger down glossy pamphlets showcasing art schools and design programs. A faraway look crosses her face, one I recognize from the early days with her father, before practicalities like cost came crushing in. We know you and Dad struggled to save anything for college, she says softly. You sure you want to spend this money on us? I gently grasp her hand. Ava, sweetie, you and your brother will always be my first priority. My only regret is not having enough to provide this sooner. Before they can argue, I stand briskly. Now, time for phase 2. I can feel their curious stares on my back as I boot up the old laptop. We'd made do with sluggish devices and spotty internet since the divorce, but the website I pull up now looks sharp and professional. Lila Gray Designs. Understated, refined. Subtly upscale. What's all this, Mom? Ethan leans over my shoulder. Just a little business I'm starting. I add breezily, freelance work takes me so far, but with an influx of capital. I let the implication hang with a knowing look. Ethan whistles under his breath. Damn, Graham's really set you up well. The distinct sound of a new notification grabs our attention. Ah, there we are. I turn the screen to show an appointment confirmation from a wealthy client in the next town over. Mrs. Vanderhorn here wants to fully redecorate her home, and Lila Gray Designs fits her aesthetic perfectly. Their delighted laughter draws my first genuine grin in ages. Let Derek get wind of my little venture, and the lies I carefully crafted to shield it. His ego won't tolerate being left out of the loop for long. Like clockwork, Derek shows up the following Saturday while the kids are out, casually mentioning spotting my stylish new business featured in an online advertisement. Oh, just a little side project. I wave him off breezily. Helps bring in some pocket money for extras. His poorly veiled curiosity brings a vindictive spark of satisfaction. I must say, Lila, I'm impressed. Turning things around so quickly, not exactly what I expected from you. The thinly veiled barb slides off as I offer an unaffected shrug. What can I say? I discovered some new motivation. Let him make of that what he will. Derek lingers awkwardly on the doorstep before clearing his throat. Well, I'll let you get back to it, but, let me know if you or the kids need anything. Trailing off, he heads back to his flashy car, envy evident in every step. I gently close the door, triumph surging in my chest. My solicitous ex would likely be turning up more frequently now, trying to ascertain exactly where my new income stems from. Little does he know the means of his downfall have already been set in motion. Soon, my well-crafted trap will snap shut around him, and Derek will finally understand exactly what I'm capable of when backed into a corner. The playing field between us is about to be leveled permanently. I knew it was only a matter of time before Derek showed up again. Still, hearing the unexpected knock at my front door makes my pulse spike with anger. I wipe damp hands on a dish towel before striding over. Derek's smiling face fills the doorway, his gaze already wandering past me to scope out any changes. Lila, good to see you again. His too bright tone sets my teeth on edge. Just thought I'd check in, see how you and the kids are settling into your new routine. I block his view with my body. Oh, we're all doing great, staying busy, you know. Yeah, I'll bet. Derek attempts to peer over my shoulder. This house looks more polished than I remember. Business must be booming these days. I fold my arms across my chest. Did you want something, Derek? His smile slips slightly at my cool tone. Good. The less at home he feels here, the better. Come on, Lila, no need to be rude. I know the divorce was hard, but we were married a long time. He adopts a reasonable tone. Don't you think it's in the kids' best interest if we get along? The audacity sends hot rage spiraling through me. This pompous jerk didn't give a damn about his children's well-being when he abandoned us. Now he wants to play caring father to worm his way back into our lives? Over my dead body. I inhale slowly. I'm sure the kids appreciate your concern, but we've adjusted well. Anything else? Derek shoves his hands in his pockets, glancing longingly past me. You, never mentioned where this extra income came from. New boyfriend I should know about? There it is. I suppress a sharp smile. You forfeited the right to details about my personal life years ago. My business is just that, mine. Frustration flashes across Derek's face at my evasion. Too bad, he'll have to work a lot harder if he wants back inside, and I intend to slam the door on him when he least expects it. Right, well, I'm happy things are going well for you all. The forced smile is back. Will I see you and the kids at my mother's memorial service next month? We should all catch up properly there. I nod briskly. Oh yes, we'll be catching up, and airing every miserable secret Derek hoped to keep buried. My mind is already churning with ideas when I firmly shut the door on his retreating back. The time has nearly come to pull the trigger on my plan. After years of anguish, Derek will finally face the karmic retribution he deserves. I scan the solemn faces gathered in the church reception hall after Betty West's memorial service, searching for my children. Groups of Derek's family and friends murmur in clusters, casting the occasional curious glance my way. I spot Ava and Ethan speaking quietly near a memorial wreath decorated with Betty's picture. As I approach, Ethan shoots a glare across the room. I follow his gaze to find Derek holding court with his brothers, accepting condolences with a somber expression. Rage simmers in my gut at his callous performance. Derek couldn't be bothered to visit his ailing mother more than once or twice a year. But now he milks the grieving son routine for all it's worth. I plan to let Derek slowly self-destruct, his boundless ego never realizing my orchestrations. But this farce is the last straw. Squaring my shoulders, I cross the room to confront the ring of West brothers. Their conversation cuts off abruptly at my presence. Lila. Derek breaks the sudden silence with a cordial nod. Thanks for coming today and for bringing the kids. I ignore his empty pleasantries, fixing him with an icy stare. I think your brothers should hear exactly why their mother revised her final wishes. Don't you, Derek? He pales slightly, eyes darting around. I'm not sure I know what you mean. Oh, I think you do. My sharp tone silences the muttered questions surrounding us. I have the rapt focus of every West family member now. Perfect. You see, Betty left a sizable portion of her estate directly to me, not her only son. I keep my gaze locked on Derek's rapidly reddening face. She knew exactly the kind of man you turned out to be, how you abandoned your family without a second thought or a scent of support. I relentlessly continue over murmured exclamations from his relatives. You couldn't be bothered to lift a finger when emergency bills piled up or college funds disappeared overnight. You left 2 teenagers fatherless without once looking back. Years of pain and rage keep my tone lethal and steady. Your mother saw it all happen under her own roof. Her final act was ensuring your children were provided for without their father's help. My words land like physical blows. Derek's mouth hangs stupidly as he grasps for a response. For over 5 years I dreamed of finally wiping that entitled look off his face. I lean in to deliver the final twist of the knife. You'll be proud to know her money is already providing a bright future for your children, one you didn't see fit to give them yourself. A deafening silence engulfs us as I finish speaking. The truth Betty recognized too late in her son now dawns on every West relation. Red-faced, Derek turns and stalks toward the exit under the weight of their shocked judgment. I came here intending to orchestrate Derek's downfall myself. Instead, Betty ensured he already dug his own grave. Now I'm simply kicking the dirt over him, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I knew it was only a matter of time before Derek's wounded pride drove him to retaliate. Still, opening my mailbox to find a legal notice summoning me to court makes my hands tremble in anger. Skimming through arrogant legal jargon, the gist becomes stomach-turningly clear. Derek aims to contest his mother's will and claim a portion of my inheritance for himself. Alleging, too, that I turned his family against him at the memorial through deception and lies. Red clouds my vision. The last vestiges of self-control shred away, and I storm inside to call the only lawyer I can afford. Her office may be tiny and cramped, but I pray she possesses the grit needed to face Derek's relentless attorneys. "He doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, Mrs. West," she asserts during our first strategy session. Judges frown upon these kinds of greedy claims, especially against bereaved spouses and children. I nod, clinging to this lifeline. The inheritance represents my only means of keeping Derek firmly out of our lives. I cannot risk surrendering even a portion of it now. Not when my children are still so vulnerable. As I helplessly watch the court date approach, my outrage toward Derek swells to consuming proportions. The settlement was never about the money itself for me, but the security it offered my family. Security Derek hadn't bothered providing when he had the chance. Now he endeavors to steal even that shred of stability away, like some caricature of a deadbeat dad from a cheap drama. Well, it's time his loved ones recognize Derek for the monster he truly is behind the flashy surface. If I can ensure everyone's eyes are opened in that courtroom, then maybe, finally, he'll slink away for good this time. My chance for closure arrives on a brisk November morning. I dress with meticulous precision. Derek may have the high-priced lawyers today, but appearances still count when reputations are at stake. The hearing itself proceeds agonizingly slow, each minute crawling past as Derek's attorney argues greedy platitudes. I cling white-knuckled to my chair, twitching at every embellished reference to my client's grief at his mother's tragic early passing. Finally, the judge calls me as a witness to illuminate Betty West's intentions in her will revisions. I recount my close bond with the West matriarch in concise, dispassionate detail before concluding, "Your Honor, the only desire motivating this petition is my ex-husband's resentment and pride at being cut off by his own mother." I turned slightly to meet Derek's reddening face. Mrs. West acted decisively to provide for her son's family after witnessing years of callous neglect firsthand. I urge you to recognize her judgment by upholding her wishes. My words reverberate through the suddenly silent room. Out of the corner of my eye, I spot Derek's brothers shifting uncomfortably as the ugly truth repeats back at them. Let Derek try worming into their good graces again after today. When the gavel finally drops, dismissing his claim, the sound echoes with sweet finality. I float from the courtroom sea-scathed but triumphant, Derek's howls of outrage music to my ears. My counterattack succeeded even beyond my hopes. Now to press the advantage while Derek regroups and secure my family's independence for good. The courtroom doors had barely closed behind me when my phone began buzzing incessantly with calls. Derek's brothers and cousins all suddenly wanted the real story on their family rift straight from the source. I blocked every last one of them with vicious satisfaction. Let Derek try convincing his relatives of his virtue now, after I aired his dirty laundry so publicly. Even his polished lawyer persona can't erase the image of deadbeat dad I painted. In the wake of the hearing, blissful silence descended from Derek's direction, but I knew better than to believe I'd seen the last of him yet. A narcissist like Derek couldn't tolerate being so humiliated, even by his own mother. Sure enough, just days later, my cell phone lit up with his number. I tapped ignore with a smirk. Derek leaving pleading voicemails was a sweet bonus, but I had a far more interesting call to take. My lawyer wore a delighted grin when I answered. "Well, Mrs. West, acquiring that financial affidavit on your ex paid off nicely. I just spoke with my contacts, and it seems Derek's assets are mostly tied up in flashy new cars and his luxury apartment. But with that new girlfriend of his being a kept woman, his monthly balances are razor thin." I pictured Derek spinning lies to preserve his wealthy image while desperately financing his lavish lifestyle on credit. It lined up perfectly with his greed for my inheritance. Nothing stroked that fragile ego like other people's money. Well, no more. I couldn't wipe the savage grin from my face as I thanked my lawyer profusely. When I hung up, Another notification flashed insistently. A bank transfer into my account for a significant sum. My breath caught as I scanned the description. Anonymous donation earmarked for a local charity supporting single-parent families left destitute by divorce. It seemed one of Derek's brothers decided to preemptively smooth relations after that disastrous court hearing, and the sizable amount now presented the perfect avenue for cementing Derek's downfall. I arrived early on donation day, ensuring I snagged a position right up front as the news cameras started rolling. As the charity representatives stepped up to the microphone for brief remarks, I tuned out their speech, fixing my gaze on the text flying between local reporters in front of me. News really did travel fast in our small town. Right on cue, the director wrapped up her comments by accepting an anonymous $50,000 donation in honor of Derek West's inspiring philanthropy. I relished the comical double-take from the reporters as camera shutters started clicking wildly. Derek's name was about to grace every small-town newspaper and website, indelibly tied to abandoning needy families. I maintained a humble, emotional expression as congratulations poured in, emphasizing my selfless desire to support other struggling single parents. But internally, I was crowing at the comprehensive obliteration of Derek's social standing I just engineered. Let's see how that leggy new girlfriend of his handles becoming involved with such a notorious deadbeat dad. Or how many of Derek's old country club peers will still return his calls once this all circulates. Checkmate. No doubt Derek will keep fighting to save his precious image. But the beauty of social media information is it can never be entirely erased. Every past business connection will have this scandal lurking in the back of their minds now, thanks to me. Karmic retribution indeed, and I'm just getting started. In the weeks following the charity stunt, I waited with bated breath for Derek's reaction, anticipating rage. But as days slipped past with no expensive cars roaring up or shrill calls harassment, an unsettling question took root. Could Derek finally be giving up? The lack of retaliation was somehow anticlimactic after years envisioning this downfall. I knew I secured total social and family exile for Derek. His girlfriend likely dumped him after that mortifying deadbeat daddy designation went public. By all measures, I triumphed. So why this lingering restlessness in my gut? No doubt Derek was off unsuccessfully pleading his case to old money connections who now avoided his calls. Time to refocus on what truly matters, my children, finally thriving free of their father's toxicity. As I review acceptances rolling in daily from prestigious art and journalism programs, I allow myself a small satisfied smile. Betty would be so proud seeing these opportunities her sacrifice created for her grandkids, and I vow to cherish our newfound security and leave thoughts of Derek's future troubles behind me. Until late one Friday afternoon when an unexpected visitor showed up looking properly chastised. I opened the front door to find Derek shifting awkwardly on the step, unable to meet my gaze. Up close, the changes in him stood out. Rumpled clothes, slumped shoulders, hair peppered with more gray than I remembered, he looked like a disgraced CEO after a messy board ouster. I folded my arms, waiting. After a long pause, Derek cleared his throat, eyes on his shoes. Guess I deserve the cold welcome. You have every right to slam the door in my face. He finally raised his head, remorse creasing his face. What I did, the court case, the threats, all of it. I don't have any defense. Just wanted to tell you I'm sorry, Lila. Truly sorry. Now it was my turn to avoid eye contact as I processed the sincerity in Derek's broken tone. A year ago, I would have given anything to wring this apology from my smug ex-husband. Hearing it now just drudged up the whisper of doubt. Had I gone overboard orchestrating such utter destruction? I shook off that thought with effort. I appreciate you saying that, Derek, but words don't erase the years of pain. My voice remained gentle but firm. I've worked hard to build a stable life here. Derek closed his eyes as though steeling himself before responding quietly. You have every right to hate me. I won't bother you again once I sign the divorce papers. My head jerked up as he shoved a document through the door. There on the top line, Derek signed away his legal right to meager spousal support, should my design business someday take off. I stared searchingly at this version of Derek I never knew, a defeated, regretful man ready to let go of his spite and pride. I wordlessly stepped back, allowing Derek space to shuffle inside and close the door. Maybe there was a shred of hope for civility between us yet. "This house isn't just yours anymore. It's ours," Marla declared, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. My heart sank as I watched the smug expression spread across her face, her words shattering the peace Eli and I had fought so hard to create. "What do you mean? Ours?" Eli demanded, his brow furrowed in confusion. "We built this home for our retirement, not for you and Nathan to move in." Marla's laugh was cold and condescending. "Oh, please. You didn't honestly think we'd let you two enjoy this place all to yourselves, did you?" She gestured around the spacious living room, her gaze lingering on the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the pristine backyard. "This is the perfect place for us to start our family." I exchanged a worried glance with Eli, my stomach twisting into knots. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. We had spent years planning and saving for this moment, envisioning a quiet, peaceful retirement surrounded by nature, far away from the chaos of the city. But here was Marla, barging in and declaring our sanctuary as her own. "Marla, we've discussed this," Nathan interjected, his voice strained. "Mom and Dad don't want us living here. It's their home." "And what's yours is mine, remember?" Marla shot back, her eyes narrowing. "Or did you forget that little detail?" Nathan wilted under her gaze, and my heart broke for him. I had always known Marla was bad news, but I had never imagined she would stoop to such levels of manipulation. Eli stepped forward, his jaw set in determination. "Marla, you have no right to make demands like this. This is our home, and we will not let you take it from us." "Oh, Eli," Marla said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're getting old, and you know it. You and Renee won't be able to keep up with this place for much longer. You'll need our help." My blood boiled at her words. I had spent my entire life caring for others, and I wasn't about to let some entitled brat treat me like a helpless old woman. "We don't need your help, Marla," I said, my voice firm, "and we certainly don't need your constant disrespect and demands." Marla's eyes flashed dangerously. "We'll see about that," she hissed. "This house is ours now, and there's nothing you can do about it." As she stormed out of the room, dragging a reluctant Nathan behind her, I felt a surge of determination rise within me. Marla had crossed a line, and I was done being a doormat. It was time to take action and reclaim our lives. I stared out the window, watching the sun dip below the trees that lined our backyard. It was a peaceful sight, one that should have filled me with a sense of contentment and happiness. But instead, all I felt was a growing sense of dread. "Mom, can we talk?" Nathan's voice startled me out of my thoughts, and I turned to see him standing in the doorway, his face etched with worry. "Of course, honey," I said, gesturing for him to come in. "What's on your mind?" Nathan hesitated, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for the right words. "It's Marla," he said finally. "I don't know what to do." I suppressed a sigh, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What has she done now?" Nathan shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "It's not just one thing, Mom. It's everything. She's demanding, manipulative, and she treats you and Dad like dirt." "I know, sweetie," I said, reaching out to take his hand. "Believe me, I've seen it too." "Then why do we put up with it?" Nathan asked, his voice rising in frustration. "Why do we let her walk all over us like this?" I paused, considering my words carefully. "You know, when you first brought Marla home, I was so excited for you. I thought she was the woman who would make you happy and complete our family." Nathan's face fell, and I could see the shame and regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have listened to you and Dad. You tried to warn me, but I was too stubborn to see the truth." "It's not your fault, Nathan," I said, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. "Marla is a master manipulator, and she's had years to sink her claws into you. But enough is enough." "What do you mean?" Nathan asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "Your father and I have been talking, and we've decided that we can't let Marla continue to disrupt our lives. It's time to take a stand." Nathan's eyes widened in surprise. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I'm not going to let her ruin our retirement. We worked too hard for this, and she's not going to take it away from us." Nathan nodded slowly, his expression a mix of fear and determination. Whatever you decide, Mom, I'll support you. I'm done with Marla's games, too. As we embraced, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. Marla had pushed us too far, and it was time to push back. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew one thing for certain. Our family was stronger than her, and we would find a way to reclaim our peace. I can't believe the nerve of that woman, Eli exclaimed, pacing back and forth across the living room. She's gone too far this time. I nodded in agreement, unable to hide my own anger. I know, honey, Marla's demands have gotten completely out of control. Out of control? Eli stopped in his tracks, his eyes blazing. That's an understatement. Do you know what she did today? I shook my head, dreading the answer. She came to me with a stack of bills and demanded that we pay them, Eli said, his hands clenched into fists. She said that since we're all family now, we should be sharing expenses. What? I gasped, my jaw dropping in disbelief. She can't expect us to pay her bills. That's not even the worst part, Eli continued, his voice growing louder. When I told her we couldn't afford to take on her debt, she threatened to kick us out of our own home. She wouldn't dare, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. Oh, she dared. All right, Eli said, his voice dripping with contempt. She said that since she and Nathan are paying the mortgage, they have a right to do whatever they want with the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marla had always been manipulative and demanding, but this was a new low, even for her. That's it, I said, my voice shaking with anger. I'm done playing nice with her. It's time to put an end to this madness once and for all. Eli nodded, his expression grim. I couldn't agree more. We've been pushovers for too long, and it's only emboldened her. What are we going to do? I asked, my mind racing. I have an idea, Eli said, a glint of determination in his eyes. We're going to call a family meeting and lay all our cards on the table. We're going to expose Marla for the manipulative, conniving woman she is, and we're going to make it clear that we won't tolerate her behavior any longer. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I considered Eli's words. It was a risky move, but I knew he was right. We couldn't continue to let Marla walk all over us. It was time to take a stand. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. Let's do it. Let's call everyone together and put an end to this once and for all. As we made our plans, I could feel a sense of resolve building within me. Marla had pushed us too far, and we were finally ready to push back. It was time to reclaim our lives and our home, no matter what it took. What do you mean you're taking the master bedroom? I demanded, my voice rising in disbelief. Marla simply shrugged, her face a mask of indifference. It's the biggest room in the house, and it has the best view. Nathan and I deserve to have it. I could feel my blood pressure rising, my hands balling into fists at my sides. This is our home, Marla. We built it for our retirement, and we get to decide who stays where. Oh, please, Marla scoffed. You're just a couple of old people who are going to need our help to take care of this place. The least you could do is give us the best room. How dare you? Eli roared, stepping forward with fury in his eyes. We've worked our entire lives to afford this house, and you have no right to come in here and make demands like this. Marla turned to face him, her expression cold and calculating. You forget that Nathan and I are paying the mortgage now. That means we have a say in how things are run around here. I felt my heart sink as I realized the implications of her words. She was trying to take control of our home, using Nathan's financial support as leverage. That's not how this works, Marla, I said, my voice shaking with anger. This is our house, not yours. We decide who stays where, and we're not giving up the master bedroom to you. Marla's eyes narrowed, and I could see the fury building behind them. Fine, she spat. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you can't keep up with the maintenance on this place. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry, Nathan said, his voice trembling with shame and regret. I never meant for things to get this far. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. It's not your fault, Nathan. Marla is the one who is pushing us to this point. But I should have done something sooner, Nathan insisted. I should have seen what she was doing and put a stop to it. Eli placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his expression one of understanding. It's not too late, son. We can still put an end to this. Nathan looked up at him, his eyes filled with uncertainty. How? Marla is never going to back down. She thinks she has the upper hand. I stepped forward, my mind made up. Then we'll have to take the upper hand back, I said, my voice firm with resolve. It's time we showed Marla that she doesn't control us or our home. Eli nodded in agreement. Your mother's right, Nathan. We've been too passive for too long. It's time to take action and reclaim our lives. As we began to discuss our plan, I could feel a sense of determination growing within me. Marla had pushed us too far and we were finally ready to push back. It was time to take a stand, no matter the consequences. Are you sure about this? Nathan asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Once we start down this path, there's no turning back. I exchanged a glance with Eli, my resolve unwavering. We're sure, honey. Marla has left us no choice. Nathan nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Okay then, let's do it. As we began to lay out our plan, I could feel a sense of anticipation building within me. We were finally taking back control, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at the strength of our family. We'll start by gathering evidence, Eli said, his voice low and serious. Everything Marla has done, from the financial manipulation to the emotional abuse, we need to document it all. I nodded in agreement. And we need to be discreet about it. We can't let Marla catch wind of what we're doing. Nathan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know how much help I'll be, he said, his voice laced with guilt. Marla has kept me in the dark about so much. That's okay, son, Eli reassured him. We'll work together to uncover the truth. The important thing is that we present a united front. As the days passed, we began to gather evidence of Marla's misdeeds. Bank statements, emails, and even recordings of her outbursts. Everything we could find to expose her true nature. Look at this, Eli said one evening, shoving a stack of papers across the table. She's been draining Nathan's accounts for years, using his money to fund her lavish lifestyle. I shook my head in disgust, anger, and betrayal coursing through me. How could she do this to her own husband? Nathan's face was pale, his eyes haunted. I never knew, he whispered. I trusted her completely. That's how she operates, I said, placing a comforting hand on his arm. She manipulates and deceives until she gets what she wants. As we continued to piece together the puzzle of Marla's deceit, I could feel a sense of dread settling in my stomach. We were uncovering a level of betrayal and manipulation that went beyond anything I could have imagined. We have to stop her, I said, my voice firm with determination. No matter what it takes, we can't let her continue to control us like this. Eli and Nathan nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with the same resolve that burned within me. We were a family, and we would fight for our freedom together. As we solidified our plan, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. We were finally taking a stand, and I knew that no matter what happened, we would emerge stronger and more united than ever before. What is all this? Marla demanded, her eyes narrowing as she swept her gaze across the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. Sit down, Marla. We have something to discuss. Marla's lips curled into a sneer, but she complied, sinking into the armchair with a defiant air. Well, let's get this over with. We know what you've been doing, Eli said, his voice heavy with accusation. We've seen the evidence. Marla's eyes widened, but she quickly regained her composure. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with us, Marla, I spat. We know about the money you've been stealing from Nathan, the lies you've told, and the ways you've been trying to manipulate us. Marla's face contorted with rage. How dare you accuse me of such things? We have proof, Marla, Nathan said, his voice shaking with emotion. Bank statements, recordings, everything we need to expose you for who you really are. Marla's eyes darted around the room, her mind racing. You're all delusional, she hissed. This is some kind of sick game you're playing. It's not a game, Marla, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her betrayal. We know the truth, and we're not going to let you continue to control us like this. Marla sprang to her feet, her hands balled into fists. You can't do this to me, she screamed. I'm your family. You were never family, Eli said, his voice cold and hard. You're a parasite who latched onto our son and tried to suck us dry. Marla's eyes flashed with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. But then she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine. she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You win. No, Marla, I said, my heart heavy with sadness and anger. We all lose. We lose the trust we had in you, the family we thought we could be, but we're not going to let you take anything else from us. Marla stared at me, her eyes filled with a mix of rage and fear. You'll regret this, she hissed. You think you've won, but I'll make sure you pay for this. With that, she turned and stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. It's done, Eli said, his voice tinged with relief. She knows we're on to her now. I nodded, feeling a sense of weight lift from my shoulders. Yes, but this is just the beginning. We need to take steps to protect ourselves from her retaliation. Nathan nodded, his eyes filled with determination. I'll start the divorce proceedings immediately, and we'll make sure she has no legal claim to this house or any of our assets. As we began to discuss the next steps, I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. We had faced down Marla's deceit and emerged victorious. It wouldn't be easy, but we were finally on the path to reclaiming our lives. I can't believe you're doing this to me, Marla shrieked, her voice echoing through the living room. Nathan stood firm, his eyes filled with a resolve I had never seen before. It's over, Marla. I'm filing for divorce. Marla's face contorted with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out physically. You can't leave me. We're meant to be together. No, Marla, Nathan said, his voice heavy with sadness and regret. We were never meant to be together. You manipulated me from the start, and I was too blind to see it. Marla's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally. Renee, Eli, please, you have to talk some sense into him. I shook my head, my heart hardening against her pleas. It's over, Marla. You've brought this on yourself. Marla turned back to Nathan, her eyes pleading. Please, baby, don't do this. We can work things out, I promise. Nathan's expression remained resolute. It's too late for promises, Marla. I've already started the proceedings, and I have all the evidence I need to ensure you don't get a penny from me. Marla's face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. You're going to regret this, she hissed. All of you. I'll make sure you pay for this betrayal. We're not the ones who betrayed anyone, Marla, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her actions. You betrayed us, our trust, our family, everything. Marla's eyes flashed with fury, but she seemed to deflate, realizing the futility of her situation. Fine, she spat. Have it your way. But don't come crawling back to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. With that, she turned and stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. It's done, Nathan said, his voice tinged with relief and sadness. She knows it's over. I nodded, placing a comforting hand on his arm. You did the right thing, honey. I'm proud of you. Eli stepped forward, his expression one of grim determination. This isn't over, though. We need to take steps to protect ourselves from any retaliation. Nathan nodded. I've already started the legal proceedings, and I'll make sure she has no claim to any of our assets or this house. As we began to discuss the next steps, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure washing over me. We had faced down Marla's manipulation and deceit, and we had emerged victorious. It had been a long and difficult road, but we were finally on the path to reclaiming our lives. Please, Renee, Marla pleaded, her eyes brimming with tears. You have to talk to Nathan. He's making a terrible mistake. I stared at her, unmoved by her theatrics. Nathan has made his decision, Marla, and it's the right one. Marla's face contorted with rage. How can you say that? We're family. You're supposed to support us. I shook my head, my heart hardening against her manipulation. You were never family, Marla. You were a parasite who tried to suck us dry. Marla recoiled as if I had slapped her. You don't mean that, she whispered. We can work through this. I promise I'll change. It's too late for promises, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her betrayal. You've had your chance, Marla, and you squandered it. Marla's eyes flashed with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. But then she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, she spat. Have it your way, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. As she turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. We had finally cut ties with Marla, and now we could begin to heal and move on. You handled that well, Eli said, stepping into the room. I'm proud of you. I nodded, grateful for his support. I'm just glad it's over. I never want to see her face again. Eli placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. We'll make sure of that. Nathan has taken all the necessary legal steps to protect us. As the days passed, I could feel a sense of normalcy returning to our lives. Gone were the constant demands and manipulations of Marla, replaced by a newfound peace and harmony. Nathan, too, seemed to be healing. The weight of Marla's betrayal had been lifted, and I could see him rediscovering the joy and contentment that had been so elusive during their marriage. "Thank you," he said one evening as we sat on the back porch watching the sun dip below the trees, "for always being there for me, even when I couldn't see the truth." I smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "You're our son, Nathan. We'll always be there for you, no matter what." As we sat together in the peaceful silence, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the journey we had been through. It had been difficult and painful, but we had emerged stronger and more united than ever before. "It's a new beginning for us," I said, my voice filled with hope. "A chance to start over and create the life we've always dreamed of." Eli nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "And this time, we'll do it on our terms. No more manipulation, no more demands, just peace and happiness." As the night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. We had faced down the darkness and emerged into the light, and I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family.